on our way to the Krakarov volcano in Russia. While looking over what little information I had on the final member of the Fiendish Five, I began to notice something. In the 4 parts of the Thevious Raccoonus recovered so far, several of the pictures depict a shadowy owl-like figure, which looks very similar to the police images of the mysterious Clockwerk. Is this a strange coincidence, or is there something I'm missing?
Greetings and welcome to the final part of the Sly Raccoon commentary. Jesus, I probably should have turned that down before I started this. But yeah, final hub-world of the game, a final boss, Clockwerk. It's gonna be an all-in-one part this time around, and, well, fantastic start. And all the better to describe it with, really. I don't even know why that was an edit there. I should probably cut that out. Which you probably won't even see, I think, maybe, possibly, whatever. Anyway, final hub world of the game, and unfortunately this is my least favourite hub world in the entire game. Well, I mean, even calling it a hub world is a bit of a stretch, because this is more like a linear series of levels. I mean, the closest thing you get to a hub world is, well, honestly, one of the few decent parts in this entire section, but I'll elaborate as we go on. In the meantime, first mission going up is basically using the turret that we got from the Thevious Raccoonus to, well, basically shoot things down that get in our way. We're making our way to the fortress, and if there is one thing to be said about the Krakarov volcano as a level, is that there is a decent sense of build-up to the final threat. Like, you can see Clockwerk's hideout, you know, in the background, and despite the fact that this is done in a mission that's, you know, relying on the whole early 2000s trend of get to the turret, it is still decent build-up and something that I can praise the level for, but unfortunately, as a result, it kind of combines it kind of combines 2 minigames that I don't think really go well together. It's combining the Protect Murray missions with an on-rail shooter, which, yeah, a little bit, well, I wouldn't say it's too radical of a shift, and it is doable. It's just the nature of the threats you face with the robotic falcons and the mines being placed everywhere that can overwhelm you, especially considering the fact that the falcons can be pretty hard to hit at certain times. I don't know, it's just a set. Well, I mean, I don't want to say that it's a radical shift in gameplay, but it's the sort of shift that I think comes too little too late. And the unfortunate side effect of this being is that this is a bit of a common occurrence throughout this level, because, again, one of my major reasons for disliking it, as you will see soon, is that it's all minigame based. There is very few Sly levels, few and far between. In fact, there are really only 2 returning level levels from level gimmicks from previous levels that you'll be seeing here. One of which is the normal Sly section, and the other, of course, being the Protect Murray minigame. Not necessarily in the same way as this, but in the traditional one that we've seen in the past couple of worlds here and there. Anyway, you know, this cave honestly does look big enough, but yeah, we're about to lose the turret which we just got. Completely pointless.
Security door on the far side of the cavern. The only way to unlock it is to analyze at least 60 of those hanging computers.
Would have been easy to get at them if Murray hadn't thrashed our new turret.
Yeah, won't be a problem. I can hack the computer's connection coupling so they'll fall to the ground. Then, Murray will have to run over them with the van.
Okay, and Murray, remember to use our new battering ram by hitting the square button if anyone tries to keep you from those computers.
I hate this mission. I really do. Now, the mission objective itself is quite simple. Bash the computers with a battering ram and, well, just get more than the flame slugs that you see here, and you'll win the game no problem. The problem is, and again, one of the banes of my existence is with these slugs itself, is that with the amount of computers that just can drop seemingly at random, and the fact that the slugs move very quickly, you can find yourself losing quite a bit here, and even though you might not see it, you will lose this minigame more than a few times when you're trying to get all these computers. And not only helping matters, and, well, something that I honestly think would have helped a great deal if, you know, they were to develop the game again, is honestly to pull the camera back so that you can see the entire arena, and as a result of that, be able to see the computers that drop, because there are computers dropping, you know, all across the arena, and places that you can't even see with the very limited view that you already have, as you're seeing right now. And those are the computers that the slugs could be using to easily get the drop on you and get far ahead of you. I mean, it's pretty evenly matched, as you can see right here, but these slugs, they can they can very easily screw you over if you're not careful, and that's why you have to be very lightning fast if you want to get all these computers. And again, as I mentioned before, this is part of my problem with, you know, the Clockwerk hub area, is that in its attempt to try and have this sense of growing finality and this, you know, this very markedly different style compared to the previous worlds in the game, it comes at the cost of being, well, I don't want to say losing focus as much, but more along the lines of the fact that I don't think these levels were as play-tested as some of the other parts of the game. I don't know, they just feel weaker by comparison. Not necessarily something that I would say is, you know, throw the controller worst game ever 0 out of 10, but something that does kind of leave Sly Raccoon on a bit of a sour note, although that's not to say that all the areas of Clockwerk's whole world are bad. It's more so just a couple of sections that do a lot to annoy and frustrate people. It's, I'd say the first two areas are probably, well, I say the first two areas are probably the worst of it. There are a few more sections to come that are, well, quite aggravating, but what they are we'll come to see soon. But there is a positive to all this, and I think it is one of the last parts that we will actually be seeing of the gameplay segments here. Anyway, now it is time for more of that delicious story cutscene, so enjoy.
Careful, Sly! Those tiles are booby-trapped! You better get out of there!
Hold on. That's Carmelita. She looks trapped.
Serves that cop right. She's been dogging us from the start.
It's just a misunderstanding. We've got to free her.
Are you crazy, Sly? Clockwerk probably stuck her there to trap you.
But if I don't do anything, Carmelita's doomed. Besides, stealing just won't be any fun without her.
Sly, your ridiculous raccoon logic sends shivers up my shell. But if you're determined to go through with this, that barrel will undoubtedly help, though I have no idea how you'll get up there.
Dude, a spire jump here, a rail slide there. I've done this a million times.
Okay, now, you see, an area like this, I don't really have a problem with. I mean, it is very difficult, well, I wouldn't say very difficult. It's really more of a natural curve of challenge, which, you know, puts all your natural given test, well, natural given test, Jesus, what am I saying? It puts all your natural skills that you've built up throughout the game to the test, and despite being markedly more difficult than what you've faced in the past, it is something that, you know, using your own skills and your own volition, you are going to be able to complete this and feel very satisfied as a result. Or fuck up amusingly, like it's about to happen here. But I mean what I say with this, like, I mean, this section right here, you know, back to regular Sly, you're doing what you've been doing throughout the entire game, and again, you know what you're doing, and, you know, you've built up your skills and you know how to complete this sort of area, so if, you know, you make a mistake or if you screw up, you know, that's not something on the game's part, that's something that's your fault, and as a result, when you do lose or get a game over or whatever, you can understand because you're thinking, oh, okay, I failed this because it was my fault, I had a poor error of judgment, so, you know, I can just correct it next time. You know, it's decent game design that, you know, relies on, well, I would say it's decent game design that relies on the player's own volition and skills to complete tasks and challenges, you know, to the best of their ability. And I guess something that was sort of a trend in the 2000s, especially with the two missions that I mentioned earlier, was that it did have a tendency to insert mini-games which the player wasn't really familiar with, and as a result, ended up losing and causing quite a bit of frustration. But again, this wasn't the case all the time, I don't think, because, I mean, there are a lot of people who would sling similar insults towards, you know, something like Sonic Adventure, for example, for having different gameplay styles, but I don't think the two are quite as intertwined as one might think.
I should have known you were behind this.
You got me wrong, Miss Fox. I'm here to rescue you.
You sentimental fool. Empathy has always been the downfall of the Cooper clan.
I knew this was a trap! Looks like I'm going to have to do some fast and furious hacking to shut down that gas before Sly's brain is turned to cheese! Haven't had to do this in a while. Okay, I used the left analog stick to steer and the right analog stick to unleash my hacker code. Those green data packets need to be destroyed if I'm going to get at the yellow security code. Well, looks like I triggered one of Clockwerk's security algorithms. Stay sharp, Bentley!
Okay, so now we have the Bentley hacking minigames, which would actually become something of a recurring theme in the Sly series. And actually something that I didn't learn until this very playthrough was that Yeah, if you touch those red, shuriken things, you die instantly. All these years of playing Sly Raccoon, and I've never known that until now, which, yeah, this kinda amped up the tension, because, I mean, if you touch the, green bits of code, Bentley will take damage, but, yeah, just get the yellow discs and you know, stuff like this, you know, it's simple, easy to play, and honestly, now that I think about it, a lot more similar towards the Swamp and Snow Skiff minigames, which, again, were decently fun, easy to pick up and play, and the sort of thing which does make for a nice pace breaker, and also tie in story-wise, which I guess is something that you could argue that Sly 2 and 3 built upon for their own side games and minigames, and whatever you call them, really. And again, it's stuff like this which I feel was playtested a little bit better, or at the very least had a similar design ethos to that which came before, which, from a player's mind point, I think honestly makes it a little bit easier to slip into how you're meant to be playing this sort of thing, or at least comparatively to, you know, the turret shooting minigame that you saw before, and, you know, the ram in all the computers to get the thing. I don't know. I mean, I guess it is certain decisions which can have the greatest impact on how a game is played and how that can ultimately affect the way things are done. I mean, well, that sounded a lot more that sounded a lot more vaguely philosophical than I meant it to, but I think you get the idea. Just playtest your levels and just try and think about the certain design ethoses. By the way, don't touch the Clockwerk creature that's trying to attack you, because I think if you crash into the boss monster, he will kill you, because Bentley is small and weak, despite his hacking prowess.
I'm the best! No code can stand before me!
Wow, way to suck your dick there, Bentley.
Sly, I was wrong about you. Break me out of this force field by smashing its base, and I'll make it up to you somehow.
Ah, lovers united at last. But yeah, we're pretty much teaming up with Carmelita for this one, and this leads into another familiar minigame, but one that, well, I really don't like very much, as you will soon come to see after the cutscene.
I don't get it, Cooper. I've hunted you for years, tried to throw you behind bars, but when you get a chance to leave me in a cage, you set me free. Why?
Carmelita, we may be on opposite sides of the law, but you're not my enemy. Now, the homicidal robotic owl that built this death ray and nearly gassed us to death, that guy's on my list.
I see your point. All right. Until Clockwerk and his evil schemes are destroyed, I suggest we work together.
Together at last. Wait, I need that cane. It's been in my family for generations.
Don't worry, Ringtail. I'll cover you while you get it back. If you can, make your way to the top of the death ray. I stashed my jetpack there before Clockwerk nabbed me.
Now that we're a team at all, I need to leave your side.
Hold on. This truce is only temporary. Once we beat Clockwerk, I'm coming after you.
Really?
Well, maybe I'll give you a 10-second head start.
As you can see, 0 lives. What you have missed? Many attempts at deaths because of those fucking fire slugs. Again, I mean no hyperbole when you say that these are pretty much a much faster equivalent of the machine gun toting dogs, whereas before they would rush Murray but usually had a bit of a wind-up before they shot their guns. These things run right towards Sly, and if they touch him, he dies. This is by far one of the most frustrating aspects of Clockwerk's hub-world, and honestly, this level just isn't fun to play. I'm sorry. I mean, it is cool that you do get to play as Carmelita, which, to be perfectly honest, I kind of wish the Sly series did a bit more of, because I loved her sections in Sly 3. Well, then again, third-person shooter fan, so what do you expect? But honestly, like, I mean, stuff like this, it's enjoyable. Well, I mean, not this level in particular. I mean, I did enjoy the Protect Murray minigames to some degree, but honestly, this just comes a point where, while this is an escalation in difficulty, it's something which, I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing personally, or, I don't know, maybe I just suck at this minigame a lot, but I just feel like the fire slugs just come in way too fast, and you have to have near godlike reaction timings just to stop them, and keep in mind, friendly fire is on, so if you accidentally end up shooting Sly, yeah, Carmelita can kill him, and then you have to do the whole thing all over again, regardless of whether or not you have, you know, not horseshoes, but whether or not you have a game over or extra lives or anything. I don't know, it's just frustrating is all I'm gonna say about it.
Nice job, Raccoon.
But anyway, the worst, well, I say the worst is over, but then again, this is another section which does a lot to frustrate me. So yeah, our objective at this point is pretty much to get Carmelita's jetpack, so in order to do that, we're gonna have to go through some bullshit, and do you wanna know what that is? Find out right now.
I'm on it.
Now, this thing is, it's pretty much a regular Sly level with a bit of a time limit added to it, where you have the rising lava. Basically, you have to ascend the tower, get to Carmelita's jetpack before the lava completely consumes the platforms. Problem is, the lava rises, honestly, I don't want to say it's impossible to complete, but the lava rises very, very quickly, and again, if you're not on the ball with this level, yeah, you're gonna suffer a lot of game overs, because this is just... it's just a pain in the ass, is all I'm really going to say about it. I don't want to say that it's, you know, bullshit or that it's, you know, so difficult that nobody can complete it, but I don't know, it's just something that leaves me very aggravated. And I have heard that in some versions of Sly Raccoon, if you use the hat mine technique, where if you drop a hat and you know, use it to explode, it can descend the lava level to a certain degree and give you a lot more time to climb that way. You know, when you reach sections like this where you have to wait for, you know, things to activate and then things to deactivate, or for platforms to rise and fall, that's honestly where the whole stipulation of having to get it done before the lava rises really starts to bite you in the ass, and it's something where I feel it isn't so much, you know, your own skills failing you as much as it is having to wait for the game's elements to go, okay, you can go now. Again, so it puts more so the fault along, it puts the fault more onto the game itself rather than your own skills as a player, which, again, when you're designing a very difficult game, I think is one of the worst things that can happen. And now we get to greener pastures as we come to the jetpack level. Well, I say jetpack level, which is pretty much our boss fight.
Sly! Behind you!
Sly Cooper, you have escaped my gas chamber and destroyed my death ray. Remarkable. You Coopers always find a way to beat me.
Always. So that was you in the background of all those old pictures in the Thevious Raccoonus. How old are you?
Perfection has no age.
What? You're immortal?
Revenge is the prime ingredient in the fountain of youth. I've kept myself alive for hundreds of years with a steady diet of jealousy and hate, awaiting the day when I will finally eclipse your family's thieving reputation.
Sly! My missiles don't hurt him but seem to create holes in his armor. Shoot into the gaps I create!
By the way, what Carmelita's saying there is kind of a lie, because she can actually damage Clockwerk. The problem is, and why people don't use that strategy, is because it takes a hell of a long time for Clockwerk's health to be whittled down, so yeah, probably best you just attack with the rocket launcher that you can here. That didn't make any grammatical sense, but whatever, my brain's kind of frazzled right now. Anyway, first things to say about Clockwerk. First of all, his voice is amazing. I love this man's voice. I mean, again, it is partially digitized, but it has kind of that res effect from Gex Enter the Gecko, where his ability just sounds cool, man. Anyway, as for the first phase of the boss fight, not too much. Again, Carmelita will shoot part of its armor, shoot the electrified bits, and of course Clockwerk's health is whittled down. No fuss, no muss. That being said though, this is a multi-phase boss fight considering that he is the final one, and he will put your skills to the test.
Nice shooting, Sly! You got him! Wow, that's one tough owl.
I don't get it. You're so familiar with my family. You must have known my father had a son. If you hated the Coopers so much, why did you let me live when you stole the Thevious Raccoonus?
Because I wanted to show the world that without your precious book, the Cooper line was nothing.
Ah, well, there's where you're wrong. The Thevious Raccoonus doesn't create great thieves. It takes great thieves to create the Thevious Raccoonus.
Enough, Sly Cooper. It ends here. I will finish you like I finished your father. Then the Cooper line will be erased, and the only master thief will be Clockwerk.
So, I don't really know what to say about Clockwerk, and I don't really have the time to really talk about his character here, considering that we also have to talk about the boss fight, but oops. Well, I guess in a general sense, Clockwerk, as a villain, I think is honestly one of the darkest parts of the Sly series. I mean, you might just look at Sly Raccoon as little more than just, you know, oh, it's just a kiddified version of a cartoon platformer with, you know, thievery and everything else going on about it, done, you know, towards more of a childish degree. Well, I mean, saying childish, I think is probably putting it, I'd say more early teen sort of demographic, like a lot of platformers in the early 2000s, but yeah, considering that this is an owl who stalked history, replaced bits of himself with cybernetics just so he could, you know, forever live his legacy as the ultimate thief, this honestly puts Clockwerk as honestly one of the most dangerous villains in the Sly series, and again, to really talk about Clockwerk as a villain, honestly, it leaves me in admiration for just how dark of a villain he is, but also for how well realized he is in the game, because his influence is felt all throughout Sly 2, and even in Sly 3, while he isn't exactly the focus anymore, it is still something that he is recognized as one of the biggest antagonists the Sly series has ever had, especially considering the fact that, if you remember back to the intro, he was the one who killed Sly's dad. I don't know, it's just a cool villain, and again, it really does make this a worthy final boss fight. Anyway, to talk about the boss fight itself, again, as you saw in the first phase, well, I mean, the first and second phase are pretty much the same. The only difference is that he'll shoot out these ring things that you have to fly in and out through. But again, you'll shoot him down, and I should probably stop this recording because my editor is starting to lag. But yeah, now that he's a puddle in the ocean, now we have to make our way towards him and kick his ass. But again, we have to navigate through lasers and broken bits and pieces of his body, just so we can get that sweet, sweet vengeance. And also dodging these lightning things. This is, well, I'd say this is probably the easiest part of the boss fight, although, again, if you feel pressured and you're quite susceptible to screwing up, then yeah, this might be a little bit difficult, but again, this is more of a breather section, considering that you do have solid platforms and, or considering the constraints of the jetpack, you aren't quite susceptible to, you know, one hit, you're dead. Well, depending upon whether or not you have a lucky charm. But again, smack Clockwerk around like this, and soon, the game shall be won.
Clockwerk is...
It took some tricky maneuvering, but I managed to snatch that last piece of the Thevious Raccoonus from Clockwerk's claw. I had taken down each member of the Fiendish Five: Raleigh, Mugshot, Ms. Ruby, the Panda King, and finally Clockwerk. I'd beaten them all one by one and reclaimed my birthright. Of course, there was no way I could have gotten here without the help of my pals. I know this hasn't been easy for them, yet they stuck with me through it all. Murray, boy, it took a lot of guts for him to get out in the field with me. I know he was scared, but he's got more heart than anyone I've ever known. And thank goodness for Bentley. Without his expertise, I'd have never found my way off that rooftop in Paris. A guy couldn't ask for a better gang of friends. Who could ever forget the lovely Carmelita? Looks like we're not going to be friends anymore. Now that Clockwerk's death ray is out of commission, we're back to playing cops and robbers. I thought for sure she was going to slap the handcuffs on me right then and there. But instead, she was true to her word and gave me that 10-second head start. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I felt bad leaving her stranded on that giant rock, but I knew it wouldn't be long before we'd see each other again.
And so, like an empty theater with a lone usher cleaning out the messes of popcorn and spilled Pepsi, after a long tiring day's work, an empty theater after a good day of entertainment, the game is over. Anyway, that was a Sly Raccoon commentary, and holy hell, this was... honestly, this is one of the most fun commentaries I've ever done on this channel. Like, I mean, I did kind of... well, I mean, I had a few parts where I kind of fumbled about a little bit, especially the last part. Jesus, what the hell was that about? But all in all, Sly Raccoon is a fantastic game, and one that I am very glad to revisit time and time again. It does have a few faults here and there, like I already pointed out, with the final hub world having, you know, a few too many minigame-focused missions, and of course the minigames themselves being one of the weaker aspects of the game, but honestly, overall, again, while you might just look at Sly Raccoon as just Crash Bandicoot with a cane, I think what it offers is not only just a 3D platformer that has a unique stealth gimmick, but something that manages to forge its own identity while also working with what's worked in the past. Again, it doesn't entirely redefine the genre, but it takes what worked before and gives it its own unique twist, which ultimately makes me very happy for Sly Raccoon, its story, its characters, especially its characters actually. I mean, one of the best parts about Sly Raccoon I've always felt was its strong sense of cast. When, whether it be the Koopa Gang themselves, whether it be the villains, like Mugshot, Ms. Ruby, Clockwerk, Panda King, even Sir Raleigh, really. Again, it's a fantastic game, and I'm very glad that this commentary came out the way that it did, because this is something I put up there alongside the likes of the Matrix Path of Neo, Gex 3D Enter the Gecko, and, well, I guess even Sonic Adventure, really. Don't really know what game I'm going to be taking a look at next. I'm kind of got my ass chocked up with a Metal Gear Solid review that I'm planning on getting out this Christmas, but in any case, stay tuned, is all I'm going to say. What the hell was all this about? Anyway, we're not done yet.
I hate to tell you this, Sly, but the Thevious Raccoonus isn't fully restored. You're gonna have to go back and unlock all the vaults to find the pages you're missing. There is some good news, though. A friend of mine in Japan just sent me this really cool movie. And guess what? It's all about us!
Yeah, we're not going to be watching this. This is pretty much just the Japanese anime opening of Sly Raccoon. So yeah, we're going to cut back to when we get to China. Now, it's for the final time. Press the circle to enter the vault code. Now, what we get here is pretty much the freeze all guards in the world for a few seconds, and one thing I just want to mention before we conclude this commentary, considering the fact that we're at the end of the game and the only thing you have left to do at this point is the Master Thief sprints, this is useless. Abso-fucking-lutely useless.
Amazing! Colonel Reed Cooper's Time Stopper technique. Press the triangle button and execute a flashbang that will stun all guards in the world for a few seconds. I can see how this might be useful, and entertaining too.
And so, with every book in its place, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
At long last, the Thevious Raccoonus restored to its original state. The first time I held the whole thing under my arm since I was 8 years old. The same weight that all my ancestors had felt beneath their arms as they had passed it on. Although, while other family members may have been great thieves, they all inherited the book. I got a chance to earn it. I had taken down the Fiendish Five, having used the moves my ancestors taught me, and become a master thief along the way. The time had come for me to chronicle my own adventures into the great book. This is gonna be fun.